So just a very quick intro to JTF. I can see that a lot of the people on the call here currently work with us, so you'll know exactly who we are. But for anybody that is not a current customer of ours, we are a Marketo-specific marketing automation agency. So we have a team of consultants within the business who really work within the Marketo solution day in, day out, myself included. So we like to think that we are the experts when it comes to everything Marketo and the ecosystem that surrounds it. So you can see a couple of businesses on there that we work with. You might see yourselves, but we work across a wide range of sectors, everything from financial services to technology. You can see some manufacturing and education providers on there as well. So real wide range, and we like to think that we can and will work with any sector. And obviously, Marketo is a real nimble system, can be transferred across all of these sectors. So I'll touch again on the end, but if you are kind of reaching out at this point to try and find a partner, you know where we are, and just head over to our website and get in touch. And we'd love to work with you. So my name's Paddy. I'm one of the lead consultants here at JTF. So I am a Marketo certified expert. I like to think being the main word that I know what I'm talking about. So hopefully, if you've got any questions at the end, I'll be able to help you with those. So what we're going to cover today is data hygiene best practices. So there are a couple of points that we've pulled out there that we think are worth noting and taking away, potentially some quick wins in there. Prioritizing your leads for higher conversion rates. So how can we really use data to understand who is the highest priority? And how can we make sure that they get the priority they deserve in order to push them through quickly and efficiently through that buying journey? How to nurture leads through that customer journey rather than just hope they get there. How can we make sure that we have content provided throughout that buying journey, irrelevant of the stage you currently sit in, to nurture you all the way through to ideally becoming a customer? Personalization techniques, always a brilliant way to try and make your journeys and campaigns as effective as possible. We all know the stats are out there and quite obviously show the benefits of personalization. Multi-channel campaign management, we'll touch on AdBridge very briefly, and it's potentially a really great solution if it works for your business to integrate multi-channel, so we can start integrating with some other networks out there, and really make sure that we cover all the touch points across that customer journey. And then, as I mentioned before, hopefully we get a chance for a quick Q&A at the end. So data quality, as it says here, you know, it's critical. It's funnily enough often the last thing we think about, or at least it's the hardest thing, so therefore gets pushed down the pecking order. Actually, without real good quality data, you're kind of working with your hands tied behind your back a lot of the time. And as marketeers, you'll all be very much aware of that, because it's often our biggest struggle. Maximize content to engage leads over time and collect additional data points. So as I mentioned, you know, often we sit separate as a marketing function to data teams or CRM teams, whatever that looks like within your business. And it's often quite a slow and quite a difficult process to get more data and to improve data quality when there's more than just the marketing team involved. So how can we use Marketo, and how can we keep that kind of workload within the marketing team and try to acquire additional data points and really start filling up profiles? Because it's only with that data that we'll be able to really enhance our conversion. Monitor and enrich empty fields. So is there a way that we can start filling in some of those missing pieces? You know, if you could have imagine a world with full customer profiles, every data field complete, there's so much you can do. So, you know, maybe you work backwards and you say, what fields are most important? What data points would really move the needle? And can we focus on gathering some of those? Automate data hygiene programs. So some of those real high priority data points may be those same data points that are really hard to gather. You know, We often see this in things like country fields, really important when it comes to things like partition logic across different territories of a business. And it's very easy to get muddled between naming conventions, US, USA, et cetera, et cetera. Can we use simple data hygiene programs to make sure that those campaigns and those data points are correct? Reduce follow-up time. So you can see an example on the right there. So this is our chili piper. So we work with a partner called Chili Piper that you may or may not have heard of. If not, I'd encourage you to either reach out directly to us or head over to their website and just have a look at the solution, because it's really, really handy. But we can use that kind of solution to automate responses. So again, using something like an example across multiple territories or countries, we don't have the luxury in, say, a US market, sitting in, say, the UK, to wait a whole day before we get back in touch with a customer. So can we automate, can we put the power back in those hands? Send them an email, send them a follow-up campaign that encourages them to then book a meeting with us. And that drives a real positive behavior immediately, rather than sitting back and waiting until the next day the sales rep comes in, they get in touch. Can we fast track that, and can we put the power back in the hands of the customer? And there are other pieces of software, that's just one, and equally the ability to route calendar inquiries is just one solution. That could be multitude of things. Maybe it's contact us forms, maybe it's dynamic chats, whatever it is that allows us to keep in touch with the customer. We don't want to lose contact. Lead scoring, and importantly, revising your lead scoring. Lead scoring is one of those things that we see a lot, where it feels like a set and leave. You set it up, it looks great, it's working great, and we are all super, super busy. You get going with everything else and you forget to revisit it. And it outdates itself very, very quickly as things move on. So update your lead scoring regularly, revisit the model. Is it still working? I always encourage customers to use data to inform that if they possibly can. So have a look at people's scores, understand who is qualifying, are the right people qualifying, start to understand of those people that we qualify, how many of them are then converting and becoming opportunities and won opportunities, importantly. That then tells you, is your scoring correct? And as I say, revisit that. And you can, even if you don't have that level of data, if you're relatively early in your lead scoring journey, you can run personas essentially through your model, make up some personas. You hopefully will have some personas within your business, and imagine, some say it's demographic. Imagine that persona is running through your model, give them a score, write it down on a piece of paper if you have to. What score do they get to? Are they qualifying? And then have that conversation with your sales team. Theoretically, we were going to qualify this lead here. Are you happy with that? Are you not? What would you change? And what data points have allowed them through, and which would you like to allow them through if they weren't correct? Personalization, as I mentioned at the start, there's plenty of information out there that tells us how important personalization is and how much more effective it is when you add personalization into a campaign versus a generic campaign. So it's a real quick win. You can go super, super simple with personalization, or you can go really complex. So top bullet there, tokens. They can be really simple. Hi, insert first name, is the most obvious, the most common thing you see out there. But you can get more interesting. You can start filling out things like the examples you see on the right, specific URLs, from names, dates, addresses. You can really start to personalize it so that when the customer receives their email, it's contextualized to that customer. Dynamic content. So, can we use segments to then fuel dynamic content based on some of those personas that we spoke about and some of those data points that we spoke about? We can swap out images, content blocks, You can even, if your templates are set up in the way that we like to set them up, you would be able to do the same with things like call to action buttons, and really start to test and learn through some of that stuff. So if we send this particular call to action to this particular subset of customers, what action is created off the back of that, and how do we keep tweaking that? How do we keep testing and learning to make sure that personalization is effective? Velocity scripting to hyper personalize. So that's dynamic content on steroids. So basically anything you want to personalize, anything you want to pull through, you can do it with velocity scripting. It's quite a technical solution. It's not as easy as the dynamic content and the tokens. You don't just drop it in to your email. It's got to be scripted and coded up, but it is possible. So if there's anything that you're looking at dynamic content and tokens and saying, if only I could achieve this, velocity scripting more than likely can achieve it for you. Align content styles to revenue model stages. So we're going to touch in a couple of slides on a revenue model. Mapping out that customer journey is such an effective solution. We try to do that at the start of every conversation that we have with clients. It becomes the framework for everything you then do. So understanding your revenue model and then aligning content correctly to the correct people. That may be through, say, an engagement program that mirrors the stages of your revenue model. There's a couple of different ways to do it, but that's a common one. But they will really help drive engagement because the people at the right stage are getting the right message. Again, back to that contextualizing content. And then, as I mentioned earlier, ad bridge, which we'll also touch on. Can we serve personalized ad across multiple platforms? So it's very easy to say there's a lovely personalized email, and then everything else that you see as a customer is not contextualized. So can we try and maintain that standard that we create in Marketo outside of Marketo and across some of these paid ad networks? Nurture for longer. So touching on those engagement programs again, it's very easy, I think, to send a really fantastic set of 2-3 emails, that are really contextualized. It's a lot harder to nurture that customer for a longer period of time. And you may well have this scenario on the call. We certainly work with a number of customers where that journey from brand new customer through to opportunity one can be years, multiple years. So we need to be nurturing customers throughout that entire cycle. We can't expect a one email, or even a 2-3 email welcome journey to maintain for years and still be useful or even remembered by the customer later on. So how do we make sure that they're constantly served useful content? And engagement programs are exactly the right thing to use there. We can just keep adding content to the bottom of the cast effectively, and they're served it in a regular manner. And then align that engagement program, as we mentioned, with your revenue model and your buying cycle. And then, interestingly, lead scoring can kind of elevate that to the next level. So what is it that so we've got you in your stages. What is it that moves you to the next stage? It might be a data point. It might be a score. It might be something like a manual trigger. It might be a form fill. What is it that takes you from one stage of that buying cycle to another? And can we make sure that throughout that process, you're nurtured towards that? We often get stuck in this position where we're just throwing content into an engagement program in order to fill it with content, and forgetting that the goal of this is to move you across that revenue stage. So back to that, using that revenue model or your customer journey as an anchor, constantly come back to that and understand all the activities and campaigns that we're running, pushing people towards that end goal. So this was just an example for anyone that hasn't seen it, or potentially anyone that has. I think one of the beauties of working with an agency like ourselves is that we get to see a lot of these. So there's a lot of everybody has a slightly different model. Every business is slightly new. So can we apply some best practice from company A to company B or and is there some opportunities where you may not have thought of it this way? So feel free to use us for exactly that. But this is a great example. This is your real standard revenue model. So all the typical acronyms that you would expect to see, the MQLs, SALs, SQL, etc. And in this particular model, we've spun those out even further. So you'll see 3 different types of SQL: proposal stage, negotiation stage, and a similar with lost there. You can see 4 or 5 actually different types of a lost customer. But crucially, they are very different. So somebody that you've lost because of price is very different to somebody that you've lost because they went to a competitor. So making sure that they sit in the right bucket or stage within a revenue model is really important. And you'll see the lines. So the green path along the top is the positive path. We want, in an ideal world, you to just stay along that path, jump through every stage and reach the end, and we've won a customer. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way. So the red arrows are stages where people, almost negative stages, detours as we call them. And then the blues and the greens are where people are kind of jumping back onto that positive path in one of 2 ways. They may jump forward, they may jump in a more kind of straight up, as you can see there between lost and SAL. It's not necessarily a progression, but they're back on track. And you can build this really easily. We can support there as well if needed. And you just decide, or each of them arrows effectively is powered by a smart list, what moves you from one to the other. So then multi-channel campaigns linking into that. So there's a couple of interesting ways you can use AdBridge in particular to try and suck information from some of these ad networks. One is for new leads. So we use forms on some of these ad channels that then create customers within Marketo through their native link. You can even use Marketo forms. So you could use a form within the ad channel if that works better for you, and have them acquired that way. Or you could send them out to a Marketo form that say sits on a landing page with some more information. Again, something you likely want to test. And dynamic audiences. We mentioned before about creating that contextualization across the customer journey and across the channels. So you can see here where we have, say, an SAL. So the lead has been accepted by the sales team. Maybe Facebook isn't the right place to continue channeling messages through. Maybe at that stage, it's more of a reminder. So maybe we could send the things out to the likes of Google's ad network at that stage. So really understanding what works for what customer and at what stage of their journey. It's super important. It's one of those things where we are so busy that you will have people sat in those pots that were lost customers. So whatever reason they may have been lost, they were lost opportunities, but we don't pull that information back through and allow it to then empower the journey. So for instance, somebody's lost based on price. Do we just forget about that and carry on as we are, or do we try and address that? It doesn't need to be necessarily addressed through dropping prices. That can be addressed through your content. So can we use Marketo to address some of those things? Linking CRM statuses with reason codes. So disqualified because no response, as an example there. Understanding within your CRM why, rather than just having it sit within a revenue stage within Marketo, having it filter back into your CRM and understand why they didn't convert in the way that we wanted them to. Automate continued outreach and re-engage. One of the pet peeves that I always come back to is this thought that we just, somebody is a lost opportunity and then they're lost forever. You know, that's not the case. And I think it's also very important to understand that differs. How long that customer is lost differs across different businesses. So you might have a customer that's lost. Maybe they've taken out a contract with a competitor and that's a 12-month contract. Well, after 12 months, they're back on the market, they're fair game. So how can we make sure that we're re-engaging at the right times? And again, it's an opportunity to test and learn. When should you be re-engaging with customers? And then this opportunity to survey. So you can survey prospective customers at the very start of their journey. You can survey lost opportunities at the end of the journey. You can really start to understand why you are sat within the stage that you're sat with it. So real great opportunities there.